button.
Which button?
That means that we're live now.
Oh. Five. Oh, I can't log in anymore once again.
Okay, I'll send out a tweet. Okay. So, how was your skiing?
It was good. It was really good. And cheap. We saved so much money. I did not know that you can snowboard with entire family for this little. And we met language learner over there. He saved us 2 days in the hotel.
Yeah, that's cool.
So, yep. So it was fun seeing him ski. So it was a pleasure.
I've never gone skiing, and I was really bad at snowboarding, like really bad, but whatever.
I snowboarded. I started skiing actually when I was 6, and kept doing it until 14. And when I was 14 years old, I switched to snowboarding, and snowboarding since then. So more than 20 years doing this. So I'm okay at this. Not like professional, but I like it.
Okay, so I've made a few changes to my map recently.
You made the what? Changes?
This guy's asking, how do you save money skiing in Colorado? Well, first you stay with a friend.
Resorts. there are a lot of resorts that are not, as expensive as Breckenridge. And yeah, I have corporate benefits that that would reimburse me for stuff like that. So it cost me like $1,500 less, and that's why it was cheap for me. And also we stayed, like my family of 4, we stayed at the hostel actually. And it was really nice hostel, surprisingly, and it was really cheap. It was like $100 per day for 4 people. So we spent, I think, $600 for the hostel, and then the lift tickets were reimbursed by my company, and then we spent some money on fuel, food. So in the end, it was like, I don't know, maybe $1,100 or $1,200 per skiing trip per 4 people. So I consider it to be really cheap. I don't say I saved money on that, but yeah.
Okay, so we'll get the Soledar later, because I wouldn't be so hasty in accepting things. Because I'll tell you this. Yesterday, I had an officer who is near Soledar. He's not in Soledar, but he's close enough, and he basically said everything that anyone has said on Telegram is wrong. He's like he's offended and angry that people believe that shit. So those were his words. So I'm waiting to hear from actual officers before I believe any stories about Soledar being surrendered or whatever. Anyways, I've made some changes to my map recently. I marked this kind of area near Kupiansk as controlled by Ukraine, which it probably has been for a long time. I just never marked it that way. This was all gray area before. And similarly, these two towns I've marked as Russian controlled, which I had as gray area before. In Debrova, Ukraine claims to have captured it either today or yesterday. I haven't seen any proof, so I've marked it as like light blue instead of dark blue. And then there's the area around Soledar. This is confirmed information that I can find. Kind of ignoring the rumors, although this right here didn't map right. I heard another source today say that Idhorodne has been lost to the Russians. And I'm just going through like a quick rundown right now. We're going to get into more detail in a second. I just want to like do an overview. So I have multiple sources telling me that Idhorodne is totally lost at this point. That it was actually lost a few days ago. But now it's been confirmed by multiple sources now. Near Klishchiivka, we have the Russians are moving. They're north from the south, so they're kind of like flanking the southern section of the town. And yeah, those are. Oh, and then we have some changes around Dorozhenyanka. So those are all the changes recently, and we can get into more detail now. Is there anything that you want to talk about in particular, Konstantin?
No, I'm actually happy to hear your updates and just ask some questions as we go and help you with the chat.
Okay. So about the salt mines in Soledar, there are a lot of mines in Soledar. There's not one. So it's just more complicated. And also, the salt mines are not the only mines in Soledar. There's actually 4 different completely independent mine systems. So which system did they take their photographs in? Was it the asbestos mine? Was it the salt mine? Was it the I can't remember what the other mines are. But there's 2 other types of mines that I can't remember. There's lots of mines.
Yeah, also there are salt mines that are not only like we know there is a salt mine which has entrance in the center of the city, and there are mines that are abandoned and but do still have like an entrance to them. There is no active extractions going on, so we don't really know from that picture that was shared which exactly was it. So I would not confirm that it happened 100%.
This whole area between Soledar and Avdiivka, this is all covered in caves and mine systems. And this has all been under Russian control for a long time. Right here is this little circly thing. I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure this is the right one, but I'm pretty sure this is a cave that goes to Popasna. Okay, so there's just a lot of stuff going on. Like, this is like a kind of a weird area with lots of underground stuff. So just seeing a photograph doesn't tell you everything. like these photographs can be faked and they can be taken out of context, and that's why we wait for confirmed information. Yeah, I know there's 4 different mine systems. And gypsum is one of them, and asbestos is one, and the salt mine is one, and I can't remember what the 4th one is, but there is a 4th. Anyway, so I guess we could start in this Kupiansk area. I have very little news about here. I know that Ukraine controls this area along the river, and I know that Ukraine very, very much wants to capture Liman Pershi, but I know that they haven't been able to, and that they can't really attack Vilshana because of the terrain. This kind of open area south of Vershana is very difficult to cross because the terrain goes down and then back up, and then it's easy for the defender to attack or to fight off the attacker who has to fight downhill and then uphill. So Ukraine can't move north into Volshana itself, so it has to flank it from Liman Pershi. So there's a lot of like minor fighting going on here, but not much has changed. Then you have some. I have marked these changes, as I already said before, but I don't know of that much fighting going on here. Like this whole kind of area is kind of dead of news. There's just shelling reports all the time, and this kind of goes all the way down to Novoselevsky, which we do get news from, and the news is usually we dropped some bombs out of a drone or we shot some artillery. So this whole kind of northern part, I see very little news coming out of, almost none. Like it's. So, have you heard from your friends in this area, Konstantin?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
So which specific area, like entire line or
Novoselevsky, Kuzimivka, like.
So there was some advancement in the south of Kuzimivka that was confirmed, not too far. A bit south.
I've marked.
I think you have
this,
it. Yeah, you have it
all
in
yellow.
the yellow. Yeah, but in Novoselivsk and Kuzimivka, it's a key point for both for Ukraine and Russia, but still there is no advancement on either side. So just standing here, holding the positions that you have highlighted. The Pitkuchansk is not controlled by Ukraine, but it has it has how you say this, fire control of it, and can shoot it, but there is no soldiers controlling it at the moment. So
and one thing to keep in mind is that this highway is kind of the high ground, and then everything like east of this highway is like a hill that goes like down pretty steeply. So if you can just imagine that this is a big hill that goes down. So the town itself is low ground. I think it's about 50 to 60 meters lower than this highway. And the same is pretty much true for Kuzimivka. This highway, like everything east of this highway is low ground.
Yeah, so it's like on the hill.
Yeah. This to say, like, we know that in Novoselivsky, the Russians have they have trenches and whatnot through this forest lines, like through all these forest lines. But I think it's a stretch to say how much of this town they control. I don't
Well,
know.
there is really no one control. There are, them going back and forth.
Yeah.
It's hard when it's a small town, so
This area north of the town, this kind of rectangular area. I'm trying to put it on the map. Okay. Everybody on screen. This is definitely a no-go zone for everybody. If you look on any recent satellite footage, this is just a giant crater. This gets shelled a lot every single day. So this kind of field is a definite gray zone. It's a no man's land. As for who controls these three towns, I really have no idea. I have very little news about the control of these areas. I don't know if you know more than I do. Like you said, Pidkuchansk is a gray area for sure, and these other two, I'm really not sure. I think they're either gray area or controlled by Russia. So, moving down south, there's constant.
if you have a moment, we can.
Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah.
If you have a moment, I can give you a link. 1 second. That you can. Oh crap. That you can, play a video from the region that you just showed. It's from the one of the drones that we have supplied.
Okay.
Getting Russian tanks destroyed. So if you want to play it, give me 1 second. Maybe people are gonna be interested in it. I will share the link with you.
Well, I'm already playing it.
Huh?
I'm already playing it.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah, I got
Okay,
it.
yeah, that's Novoselivsky. That's a Russian. I think it was BMP-3 actually. Yeah. So this is how. This is Novoselivsky, and Russian BMP-3 is driving towards our positions there. Near the tower, you can locate it on the map or using this tower. It's pretty easy.
Yeah.
I can show you the coordinates, and you see what happens to the to that tank over there. Yep. So this happened, I think, around 2 weeks ago. It's not today, but it's 2 weeks old. I was asked to share it later, not now. But here you have it. I don't think it was posted anywhere yet.
I haven't seen it. Okay. So it's nice seeing some armor get destroyed.
Yep.
Now, I'm bad at finding stuff on the spot like this, but I'm guessing that was basically in the middle of the town. So
yeah, give me 1 second. I have it located.
we've had a lot of exclusive video.
Yep. Well, I don't have that much, right? I have not been asking for videos usually, when I have fundraiser, because I'm not craving, getting those videos. Just when I need to get some attention, I'm asking guys to send me some, so that we can fundraise for them. I personally am not like, one of those video aggregators that collect all of them and post. I'm not interested in that.
And doing it's a lot of work too. Like,
yeah, it's hard. I'm not mixing up. and properly locating them.
Yeah, but I don't feel like locating this, but it's like somewhere. It's I think it's in the middle. I think it's like right here or something. But it just shows that if Russia can't be safe in the middle of the town, it means that they don't control the town, right? So.
Yep.
Okay, so moving on. Makivka is constant Russian attacks. I think the Russians' attacks are coming from the north. I'm not totally sure about that. They might be coming from the east. And but this Makivka and Plashanka, the Russians are really trying to push Ukraine back over the river. The river kind of runs through the middle of Makivka. So they're trying to push Ukraine back over the river, and it's just not going well for the Russians. They haven't really made much or any ground in a while. They've taken some gray area, but that's about it. Today, there was a massive shelling of Nevsky, and it seems kind of pointless because I don't know if anybody is even in the town. Like, I think all the civilians are mostly gone. I heard that there's maybe like 50 left, and I don't think the Ukrainian army is in the town, so they're just kind of shelling it for fun, I guess. I'm not really sure. And around Cherno-Popivka, I do not have much news from the Ukrainian sources, but the Russians apparently have cleared these kind of forest strips. They claim, anyway, that they've cleared these forest strips, these 4 forest strips of Ukrainians. But I don't know, that hasn't been confirmed. This one forest strip here, I can't remember what it's called. It's a really tiny town. They don't even put the name on the map. But Ukraine controls this little tiny town that's not named. So, yeah, I don't know if you know anything more about this area, because I know that I think you know more people here than I do. And then in Dubrova, like I said, Ukraine claims to have liberated the town. Actually, I think this would be technically called capturing the town, but they claim it's under Ukrainian control, but I have not been able to confirm that.
Dubrova. So we have, as far as I understand, we have entered that, and just basically, threw the Russians away. But there is no one who is not like liberated, and people can full control, because it's in highly contested area, and calling something liberated there is quite hard in general.
Yeah. And the only way to get there is by crossing this bridge right here, which I've posted a video of this bridge the other day. I could probably play it if you want, but this bridge is insanely dangerous. It's one of the most dangerous places in all of Ukraine, and it's the only way to get to Dubrova, other than crossing what would frankly be military bridges, which I don't think civilians would be allowed to do. So getting to Dubrova is extremely dangerous. Like, it would be really, really difficult. So that's why I don't think you call it liberated. Anyway, and this is the thing that kind of bothers me, because liberation is a legal process. It's not really a military one, but whatever.
Liberation is a legal term when they have to establish like administration over there and start delivering some stuff and have officially declared it liberated.
Yeah.
Entering and securing it is different stuff.
Okay, so and this whole kind of area of the battle is kind of boring. This is what I'm kind of rushing through it, but Ukraine is pushing towards Shipilivka. Anyway, they are pushing towards it. They have had their recon and whatnot get close to the town, if not enter it. I'm not entirely sure. But no, the standard infantry have not been anywhere close to it. But this kind of seems like their next goal, because obviously they want to get towards Rubizhna to cut off this highway. So moving kind of up is they're obviously what how to get to Rubizhna. So anyway, this is kind of like a very slow advance, like painfully slow. Like I think we've moved from here on September 19th to here on January 3rd. So yeah, that's like a few hundred meters in like 3 months. So but anyway, so that's kind of like the boring part of the map, in my opinion. Verkno Kamyanska, not very much going on right now. Sperna, not very much going on. Vesely, not very much. This town is destroyed. It doesn't exist anymore. Ukraine is in the hills above it, and Razdolivka is probably going to become very important soon, but not much is going on right now. So that kind of gets us to Soledar. It's kind of depressing, but basically over the past few days, Ukraine had to abandon Bakhmutska and fall back into the southern part of Soledar. Then they decided to withdraw from the southern part entirely and move towards the center of the town. At that point, things kind of went from controlled to out of control. And I'm not really sure exactly what happened, because there was a point where it was stable, and then suddenly it wasn't stable anymore. And that's when Wagner moved into the center of town. They claimed to have captured part of the salt mines, and then Ukraine claims to have pushed them back out. And I guess that was up to yesterday. And then today, the Wagner have been taking pictures of themselves in kind of this area of Soledar, and also kind of this area. So what exactly is happening in... Okay, so I'll just kind of draw, I guess. I'll draw. This part of Soledar is completely under Ukrainian control, from the last I've heard. I've not even heard of even the most optimistic Russians claiming to be there. Russian propaganda wants you to believe that all of this is under their control, which I've seen no evidence of, no real evidence. But there have been photographs in these kind of areas. So that's kind of what I know about Soledar that is confirmed, at least. There are lots of rumors about what else could be happening. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about it right now.
So I would suggest that believe in all the rumors, because of the one picture of the guy in some mine is not really productive. It may be true, it may not be true. No one right now knows. It's late. It's middle of the night in Ukraine right now, and they need to do those psychological operations. And those psychological operations, they are somewhat effective because troops, they do monitor and do read the news, and Russian news as well. And they have a number of fake Telegram channels. And what it gives you, if you're, for example, one of the soldiers stationed that's fighting in Soledar, and you read Telegram message that Soledar is taken, a lot of troops start thinking that okay, we're being flanked. And the only and if there is a problem with communications, radio communications, and there may as well be those problems because of the jamming. Some troops can, and it's if you've been in those situations, you may understand they can withdraw from their positions without actually having an order to do so, and without any actual reason other than believing psychological operations. So most of the Russian captures, they are followed by informational attacks as well. And also they have technologies like, for example, Russian drones can send us, like, it can be flying and hijack your connection and send an SMS message, like saying something about the situation in where you are currently, which of course may be a lie. And soldiers do, it's a psychological operation. If you think that they're so stupid, you would not believe it, and you would just stand your ground and be so brave-hearted fighter. It may not be true in reality if you try to do that. So they do the psychological operation. So keep this in mind. The town may not be lost yet.
And I try to when dealing with something of this level of importance, I really only trust officers. Because the officers know more about big picture events, especially in an area of this significance. Like, but the common soldiers might not really know what's even happening.
Yeah, as a soldier, you only see, as in infantry specifically, which is holding those positions, you only see your sector. You don't know, and there are your friends who are calling you, who are telling you something, may not as well know. There's a lot of panic, and you must understand that not everyone is in Ukrainian army is 100% a super professional. 8 years experience fighter. People do tend to forget, like, to tend to make mistakes and believe in bad things when things are not as bad as they are in reality. Uh, for example, take Kiev. Everyone was thinking that Kiev is lost in 3 days, and yeah, it wasn't. So let's just continue, hope for the best, and just continue watching it and believe the proper sources instead of just some Russian Telegram posts, because they lied so many times before, and this may be just another one.
Yeah, and also the Russians have like claimed to have captured Krasnohora and actually all three of these towns, I think. Blahodatny. They claim to have captured all three of these, and that is not true. It is they're not they're not even in the towns. They're not even in the outskirts, to be honest. They have been lying about everything, really. So as you can see, they are trying to flank Soledar on both sides, and part of this is that they have almost certainly captured Pitaradne, and this was a I don't know if you can say it's a super important town, and it's definitely not a big town. I think its pre-war population was like 100 people, but it's still a position, I guess. And from what I understand, Ukraine had to withdraw from here because these forces to the north of the town had started to flank them, or threatened to flank them anyway. So, let me see.
And thank you for moderating this chat, because this guy was annoying. Simulation warlord.
Yeah, it took me a while to see it, but I saw it eventually. But
You should
there,
give me the moderator capabilities, and I will help you with that, so you can focus on the map.
to be honest, if I knew how to do that, I probably would, but I have no idea how. We'll deal with that some other time.
Yeah.
I'll like look up a YouTube video of like an 8-year-old telling me how to do it. But Ukraine was they were afraid of being flanked from the north like this in Bidtheradna, so they just withdrew. I think they initially withdrew to kind of this area, and they fought for maybe a day or like a day or two or three or something, and then they withdrew from that too. So that's kind of what happened in Bidtheradna, from what I understand. I've had multiple sources tell me pretty much the same thing. But why are people talking about Rybar? What did I miss?
Rybar.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, I see almost no news coming from Bakhmut other than there's just kind of fighting. There's there's fighting here mostly. I don't think really anything is happening. Like I haven't heard any changes. Like it's all just kind of static, more or less. Like maybe Russia takes a few houses and then Ukraine takes a few houses, and like maybe there's probably some movement going on, but on the big picture scale, nothing's really happening from what I can tell.
So we have the question that's being asked all the time, and let's ask it once again if people are interested. Do you have any idea what numbers of Wagner are in Bakhmut Soledar area?
I have heard that they have between around 25,000 men total, and I think somewhere around 20,000 of them are here, and I think the rest are either in training or somewhere else. I think some of them are still in Africa, aren't they? I don't know, but I think they have about 20,000 men here, from what I understand.
Got it.
But they could have more. I like that. That's just those are the numbers I've seen. Like it's possible they have more. I think they've been bolstered by non-Wagner forces, from what I understand. And also
there is Russian VDV also operating in this area.
Yeah.
As I understand.
Yeah, there definitely are, and then there's also just common Russian soldiers too. Like, but also Wagner isn't only in Bakhmut. Wagner is also in attacking around Avdiivka. I think they have some guys in Belarus. They have some near Kremena. So they're not all in Bakhmut and Soledar. When I heard that they're in Avdiivka, it was very surprising to me. They're not obviously in Avdiivka, but they're. I heard that they were attacking. When I originally heard it, they were attacking Opitne and Vodiana, and then Russia eventually captured Opitne. But I heard that there were Wagner in those assaults. I don't think there were that many, but there were a few, and I think Ukrainians killed one and captured, like, took his body just to prove that he was a Wagner. But anyways, and then I guess to the point of Wagner, in Soledar, I like to say that there's like Wagner and then the real Wagner. Like the real guys are like actually have training. Like I think a lot of them are like ex Russian military, and then you kind of have like the fake Wagner, who are like the convicts and everything. In Soledar,
Well, I don't think the core of Wagner are not convicts, right?
no, the core are
Thugs, not yet convicts.
I think well maybe like well there's that too, but I think their main core was aren't they like ex-military? Like a few of them like are people who were kicked out of the military for doing things wrong or whatever. The point is that they have training. Like they actually know what they're doing. Some of them, not all of them. But anyway, those quote real Wagner are they're kind of the ones attacking Soledar right now. So the casualties that Wagner is taking in Soledar, they're not all convicts, and this is actually the casualties they're taking are actually pretty significant in terms of they actually matter to Wagner. Whereas like when they lose 100 convicts, they don't care. But when they lose like 100 real Wagner who are trained and know what they're doing, like that's actually a big deal. So and
When they lose convicts, it also matters, but just not as much because
yeah.
The human resources, not even among convicts, it's not endless. Because you still have to replenish them, and for people to understand, if Soledar is one small town in Ukraine, it's literally one small town in Ukraine. Of course, it has some importance to it, but it's just one small town. Let's remember that. And if you're gonna spend, if you recruited 40,000 convicts and killed like 1/5 of them or 1/10 of the 1/5 of them or even half of them taking this small town, the question is going to be where you're going to take next 20,000 10,000 to take other town next town, because for example, Bakhmut is much bigger than Soledar, and you still are going to spend as much troops for that as well. Like, okay, that's what Russian mistake that they did in Kiev when they had the determination to take it no matter what. At some point they just looked back and said, okay, we cannot take these casualties anymore because we cannot replenish them, because Russian convicts are not endless as well. It's not there are a total of 500,000 of them in Russia. Probably around 100,000 of them are women, and around probably only 20% of them are fit to be in military. And by fit to be in military, I mean not professional like soldiers with great physique. I mean just being able to run 50 meters without having a heart attack, because if you don't know, Russian prisons is something quite dangerous and unhealthy. People have tuberculosis is very common there, AIDS, drug addictions, and that's why finding those at least a bit fit people for the service is quite hard. So they basically depleted by recruiting 40,000 and throwing them. They depleted their entire reserve in the prisons, and so the next Soledar they will not have for the next offensive. They will not have people for that. They will have to throw their own troops. And those are even more scarce. Russia itself, they cannot throw them into the bloodbath too much, because there is Russian populace that, even though oppressed and does not care in general, but when their mothers and wives will start getting hundreds of messages with their with their sons and husband being sent into the death trap, that can backfire. That can decrease the trust of the government, and no matter how dictator has the control of everything, he has to remember that he still relies on people. Like without people, he cannot do much. So it's gonna be a problem for them. And if they wasted so much resources on Soledar, it's not as bad. Even if they take it, it's for Ukraine. It's still, we exhausted their operations, and that can in the end it can play out better for Ukraine.
Yep. And I want to talk about what is next after Soledar, but I don't want to get there yet. Anyway, anyway, so what was I saying before? Anyway, so the real Wagner are fighting in Soledar. That was kind of my main point. So yeah, so that's that. I don't remember if I had anything else to say, but there's fighting in Opitny as per usual, and then down to Klishchiivka, which is not good. The situation here is actually very bad. I think it's actually worse than Soledar. Ukraine has tried to launch a number of counteroffensives out of Klishchiivka, and they've all failed. And by failed, I mean totally failed with absolutely nothing to say for it. So this is becoming kind of a static defense, and that's just not good. Ukraine is slowly being pushed up this hill. This is a hill here, so the I'll draw it, I guess. The crest of the hill is kind of like there. So Ukraine is being pushed up this hill. And the Russians are kind of, pushing them up this hill. So this hill is heavily defended, and I'm sure Ukraine can hold it for a while. I don't know how long, but this is kind of a bad situation. It's just mostly, I don't know, Constantine, if you can have anything to say about this, but static defenses are you want to be mobile. You want to keep moving, right? Because staying in one place, it just you're going to get pounded by artillery. You're going to get flanked. It's not going to be a good time. Anyway, I think Constantine muted himself.
No, I'm not. I'm sorry. I was looking at the map as well. So Klishchiivka itself is the low, like in the ravine. So it's like in the low elevation, and the area around it it has higher elevation itself. So by itself, Klishchiivka is not like strategically important point, other than just another small village. Because holding it is, because it's at the bottom, is really complex for Toulon. So like Andrew is saying, this hill on the left side of Klishchiivka, where Andrew is pointing right now, it has elevation of 720 feet, and Klishchiivka itself has elevation of 500 feet, so it's around 200 feet lower. At the same time, on the right side of Klishchiivka, on the on the eastern side of Klishchiivka, it's 600 feet elevation, which is basically lets Ukraine to have fire control from the hill to the left of the entire Russian advances, which is good for controlling, but of course, like there is static lines are pretty hard to defend, and but that's responsibility of the commanders to make sure that if there are static positions, they're properly defended and have not foxhole. I don't know how to say it in English. Like proper dugouts and proper bunkers over there, and at the same time you have behind this areas you can see there are woods. And can you measure? Let me do it myself. If you measure the distance between the black line that Andrew has, it's gonna be 1 second to those woods and to the town. It's around 2 kilometers. So that's where basically you can have your major forces like an armor stationing, being ready to react if Russia launches massive offenses, and it all depends on the tactics here. So this is quite a defendable point, I would suggest. But once again, it all depends on the tactics and the proper equipment in the area, of course, which is a problem for Ukraine. We don't have enough tanks. We don't have enough IFVs. Mostly what Ukraine was supplied with are just light MRAPs with ATG, sorry, not AGLs, automatic grenade launchers, and heavy machine guns, which on the distance of more than a kilometer, heavy machine gun is not really that effective. It's mostly used to suppress positions, but if they use BMPs and tanks to advance, they have certain advantage. But yeah, Ukraine still has some BMPs that can fight that. Ukraine has javelins. Ukraine has ITGM, multiple ITGM systems, ATGM systems. But once again, it all depends on the tactics and the proper equipment. Of course, in the war there is never enough of equipment, but still it's quite a defendable position. So let's see what's happening in the future, in the next month.
Yeah, the issue is that Russia is moving up this canal or whatever it is, but and that they're kind of flanking the town at this point, which is a bit worrying. As you can see, they're kind of getting towards being on top of this hill now. They're moving up these tree lines and taking the area between the two tree lines. So this is a bit of a worry for me personally. Because the main support for Bakhmut are all of these highways that run through Chasiv Yar and Ivanivska. They go into Bakhmut and supply it. So obviously, if Russia takes control over this hill, then they can get fire control over at minimum this one road near Ivanivska.
Yep, that's why like everything is of course dangerous, but all depends on there is nothing to panic about yet, but of course there are this place is something to be concerned about.
And before I said I wanted to talk about what's after Soledar. To be honest, I'm not really done talking about Soledar yet, but I just want to say this: what is after Soledar? The answer is Seversk and Chasiv Yar. Seversk is being heavily defended right now. They're building trench lines, bunkers, all of the defensive structures around Seversk, and not just Seversk, obviously. It's all of this area around it. Ukraine has been planning for they've been planning to lose Soledar for months now. This is not a shock. It's not a surprise to lose Soledar. And I'm not even saying they've lost it yet, but I mean, if they do lose Soledar, it's not a shock. This is a planned for event. This is what Ukraine expected to happen. So Seversk and all of the towns near it are going to be most likely the next major battle after the fall of Soledar. And similarly, Chasiv Yar is going to be a major battle. With this area is also being heavily defended with many lines of trenches, bunkers, and all the other defensive structures. And if you look, there's a lot of urban area in this Chasiv Yar. So you have Konstantinivka, you have Chasiv Yar, you have Bakhmut, and lots of towns in between, lots of forested areas. This is not going to be easy to attack. So Ukraine expects to have a fortified front line that runs from Seversk through Bakhmut to Konstantinivka. And this is their plan. Like this is what they've expected for a long time. This area in front of Bakhmut that includes Soledar, this was kind of the prelude to the major battle that will occur, which I believe will be in Seversk and Chasiv Yar. Yeah, I can draw in the map. So like it's going to be something like it's going to like from Seversk like that, and then like that, or like this, or whatever. You know what I mean. It's going to be roughly there. Is the line from Seversk to Bakhmut defensible? Well, Krasnohora and Blahodatny, they both have to hold. These are the two critical components to this defensive line. Even if they don't hold, it's not the end of the world, but these two areas really have to hold, at least for a while. Ukraine expects that once Soledar falls, Russia will keep moving north, and try to take Seversk. That I think this is what Ukraine expects. So if Russia does something different, it would be kind of weird. So you'd expect to see fighting around Rostolivka. Vesele doesn't really exist anymore, but Avdiivka, you'd expect to see more fighting near Sperna, although there's been fighting there constantly for a long time. But this whole kind of area will end up being attacked. And as you move closer and closer to Seversk, the fortifications are going to get stronger and stronger. So that is kind of what I expect to see once Soledar falls. One thing I meant to mention before that I didn't say already is that Soledar is actually in a position that is very easy to hit with artillery from the Ukrainian side. I heard from a Ukrainian officer who more or less said that if and this is kind of a big if, but if Ukraine can hold what they hold now in Soledar and consolidate it and get it under control and just hold it as it is, it would be the worst case scenario for Russia. It would be, Russia would have been better off not attacking at all than if Ukraine can consolidate what they have. And this is one reason why Russia is so desperate to get Ukraine out of Soledar. They're using every trick that they have to get Ukraine out. They're trying to do psyops. They're trying to just throw all the infantry they have at it. They're throwing airplanes at it. Everything to get Ukraine out. Because if Ukraine can hold what they have now, they don't need to take back all the land that they lost. If they just hold what they have now, this is pretty much the worst case scenario for Russia. Because they will get torn apart by artillery. And they won't be able to stop it. Because there's not enough structures to hide in. They will just get ripped apart. And I mean, I have no crystal ball. I don't know what will happen in the future. But keeping... I don't really want to talk about the tunnel system in Soledar. But it's important. That's all I really want to say. So that's kind of everything I have to say about the Bakhmut area. I'm just going to kind of move on for the Bakhmut area. I know people have questions, but I'm just going to kind of move on. We talked about the north already. Anyway, I'm gonna move to Avdiivka. There is not much going on in Avdiivka. It's not super exciting. Russia really wants to take Krasnohorivka, and it's really frustrating because there's two Krasnohorivkas right next to Avdiivka, and they're very different situations. But I'm talking about the northern Krasnohorivka, and then there's a little town right south of Krasnohorivka, which is called Vesely. So, Russia has been attacking this Krasnohorivka pretty regularly, although they've stopped recently. In the past, 3 days, they've stopped because they've moved to attacking the other Krasnohorivka. But anyway, in Avdiivka, Russia cannot attack it head on, so they want to attack it from the north and from the south. So Krasnohorivka is really the only way to attack it from the north. The front line has not moved for a long time. There's also, as I said before, there's Vesely right next to it, and then there's Kamyanka. So this is all active fighting, not necessarily today, but generally speaking, active fighting where nothing is happening. Same kind of goes for the southern part of Avdiivka, where for some reason Russia has been regularly assaulting with no gains at all. There's been regular assaults on Vodyana with no success at all. Same in Pervomaysky, and then in this little town, Nivelske. All of these areas, Russia really wants to capture, but they just can't. They have not made any successful advances in this area in weeks and weeks. So today and yesterday, they attacked this Krasnohorivka, but made no success. And then in Marinka, there's tons of street fighting, etc. For a while, Russia pushed Ukraine back to kind of this part of Marinka, but then Ukraine kind of took a few blocks. So anyway, so Russia made a breakthrough attempt in Marinka that lasted like, I don't know, like 2 weeks or something, and now they've given up, and it's just kind of back to normal street fighting. Just casually shooting at each other, not attempted breakthrough anymore. Now they're trying to attack south, which has been a failure. So that's kind of my brief update of the Avdiivka area. There is not much happening. I don't.
So were Russians abandoned their attempts to take Marinka at the moment? To fully control
At the moment, they've, from what I understand, they're no longer attempting to break through. Like before there's big offensive push, and then it kind of fizzled out. That's what I understand. So they're still fighting, like they're still, but it's not that big push to try to capture the town anymore. That's how I understand it anyway. They're north of Marinka in this kind of little whatever this is. There was kind of like a little tank fight. That was interesting. There was like a video of that a few days ago. Like the Russian tanks were kind of here, and they're shooting at Ukrainians. They're like over here. Okay. So I don't know if there's any questions about this Avdiivka area. There's really not very exciting news from here. I just wanted to talk about it because not many people talk about the Avdiivka area. Okay. The Vuhledar area has pretty much died down. There's some fighting, not very much. Nothing very exciting is happening. I think the fighting is kind of in this area, between these two towns, or between these three towns, I guess, kind of in this gray area. Nothing too exciting. Russia's kind of abandoned their hope of, or at least for the moment, they abandoned their hope of capturing this area. They kind of moved on. And then finally, the last piece of news is in the Rajanyanka, there was I guess I'll draw for this one. It's kind of a boring story, but kind of interesting to me. Ukraine kind of controlled here. Russia pushed forward with their kind of mobilized conscripty type people. They weren't great soldiers, let's just put it that way. But the issue is that Ukraine also didn't have great soldiers in this area. So the Ukrainians kind of just panicked and fled. And then this was a TDF force. They panicked and fled north. And then a brigade that had just been rotated into position. They had just been rotated into the Gallipoli area. The TDF fled basically to them, and then that brigade moved forward and recaptured some of these positions. So this current front line was this is where that brigade had pushed up to. They expect to push further down in the coming days or weeks or whatever. So that's kind of the story of what happened here. There were a lot of fake news about what happened in in this area. There were stories of like a heroic Russian advance. You know, there were stories of a giant Ukrainian artillery barrage that just blew up everything. You know, they're all fake. It was all stupid. What really happened is some TDF panicked and ran away. It happens. So that's kind of all of the
Do you know
news.
which brigade was there? Do you know which brigade was there?
The brigade that is pushing south is the 56th, I believe. And the TDF, I can't remember. I think it was the 108th or something. I can't remember what the TDF were, but the guys there now are the 56th, I believe. So those are kind of the news items I wanted to talk about. People can ask questions if they want to. Constantine, do we have any questions?
No, yeah, I'm going through. I'm not that fast. So someone is asking, are there any offensive operations other the one around Crimea in the north by Ukraine right now that you know of?
No, not really. Like there's minor fighting. I don't know of any, and I don't even know if what's going on near Kremina it would be an offensive. It seems like it's more like tactical movements, like they're preparing for a future offensive. I think. I don't know of any other Ukrainian attacks. There is down near Mykolaiv, Kinburn Spit, there are some things going on like frog people jumping on boats and driving around, but I don't know if you'd call that an offensive.
So there is a question. Do you think that when Ukraine gets the IFVs, or when Ukraine gets an IFVs, they will try to push south? I can comment on that myself. So my personal take that there is not enough IFVs for this. The 100 that's been given is for this high intensity and scale of combat is simply not enough. It's just a small gradual build up, and we will have to see other packages that are coming in soon. The troops will have to be trained as well, and by that time the strategic and tactical situation in Ukraine may change dramatically, which would mean that the plan can be completely different. But of course, if Ukraine keeps getting those IFVs, Western IFVs, there will be a plan to push somewhere and liberate. And the plans are already there. We just we will not know what they are until they actually happen. It's a good thing that Ukraine keeps it quiet.
Ukraine builds plans like months ahead of them ever being implemented. It is the things that we see now were all planned many months ago. Like the fall of Soledar was planned, like what to do, how to handle it. All of this was planned, in September, November. How to defend Seversk, how to defend Chasiv Yar. These were all decided months ago. You never want to be caught off guard. That's not a good place to be. So, I think Ukraine's current plan does not consist of a major attack. I think their current... I mean, I could be wrong. I don't have a crystal ball, but I think their current plan is to defend this area, to bring the Russians in and attrit them as much as possible. I also want to point out that over the past few days, Ukraine has been shooting tons of missiles and missile-like objects, hitting tons of targets all around Tokmak, all around Bryansk, Belmok. We're hitting all of these places. We're hitting power plants, hitting ammo, we're hitting barracks. They are causing significant damage. Some partisans the other day took out the railroad in Novoaidar, which was kind of badass for partisans to pull that off, or quote partisans. It may have been special forces. I don't know. But Ukraine is attriting the Russian military, and they're not only attriting the soldiers, they're attriting their rear, their resources. They're taking out power plants, logistics, headquarters, command structures, anti-aircraft. From what I heard, they destroyed an anti-aircraft battery today. An entire battery. I think that was here in Nova Mayachka. Anyway, I believe that battery was right here. I think they said they took out 2 S-300s, the radar, and the command vehicle. So yeah, they're doing a lot of damage. Like, this is kind of their plan at this point, is to just take out as much of this rear stuff as they can while they fend off these Russian attacks. And I expect that Russia will launch an offensive in February or March. And I imagine that offensive will be to capture Siversk. It could be something else, but if I were to, that's my guess, is to capture Siversk or Chasiv Yar. They're kind of equal in my mind, these two areas.
So we have a question. Why do you think the Ukraine is not doing any offensives in Zaporizhia and Melitopol axis right now? Why Ukraine not doing it?
Because they just don't have the equipment. They don't have the tanks. They don't have the artillery pieces. They don't have the stuff. They're not ready.
For people to understand that Ukraine, like the support that it was getting from the West is large, but at the same time, the T-72 tanks that Ukraine was getting is simply not enough for this huge scale. Imagine that Russia had only more than 2,000 tanks destroyed in this war, and they had much more in their stocks. And we're not talking about, of course, like the latest modifications, but they have quite a great resource of coming them in, upgrading them, and replenishing their troops. For Ukraine, the amount of T-72s that exist in the world and T-74s, T-64 that exists in the world is quite limited. So every operation for Ukraine has to be successful, otherwise we will not be able to replenish them. And for example, taking Tokmak or even Melitopol by destroying all your available equipment is not going to achieve much because you will have a counterattack and you're going to lose it, and you will not have your forces anymore. So until Ukraine gets proper tanks that like a steady flow of tanks from the Western world, and I'm not talking about give Ukraine 700 tanks in next 3 months. I'm talking about just a steady flow. Like for example, if we get destroyed, if Ukraine loses 10 T-64s, we will get I don't know, at least 5 or a similar equivalent of other tanks that we can replenish. When that steady flow is built up, then we can the operations can go much more frequent and much more successful. But right now, the offensive operations without tanks are almost impossible. No matter what people say that tank is a death trap, that's not true. On the war, everything is still is a death trap, because if you take there were, even when tanks were only invented, they were still destroyed in the large numbers. It just gives you additional capability, and Ukraine does not have this capability at this moment for this high intensity, huge, wide and big battlefield, unfortunately. So when we will have a steady stream, that when Ukraine will plan the offensive, and having like for example 500 Humvees with the high caliber heavy machine guns or automatic grenade launchers does not really cut it. Even though it's a substantial force, it still does not cut it for proper offensives. So keep this in mind. That's when Ukraine will start the offensives, when it gets the right equipment.
As we've seen, Russia is firing fewer artillery shells now. From the information that we have available, they're firing fewer shells. And that's according to the British intelligence. They say they're firing around 5,000 a day. I don't know if that's true, but I know they're firing fewer than they used to. And I don't just mean like fewer than they used to. Like they used to fire like 30,000 a day, and then it fell to like 20,000 a day. And I know it's lower than 20,000. I don't know if it's down to 5,000. It might be 10,000. I don't know, but they're firing fewer shells. And one reason is because Ukraine is taking out these deeper ammunition depots all throughout, especially in the south. And I think there's a reason they're attacking the south. And I think they're preparing it for a future offensive, but that offensive might be in 3 months. So another reason that Russia is shooting fewer shells than they used to is that they haven't stopped shooting artillery. I don't want to say they're shooting zero, but they have dropped significantly the number of shells they fire in Zaporizhia, and also in kind of just basically the whole southern area. They've significantly dropped how many shells they fire. And I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that they are cutting down on the shelling in the south in order to build an operational reserve of shells. And I have heard that they want to have 500,000 shells in reserve. And the one way that they're doing it is by firing fewer shells in the south. another way that they're building this reserve is by diverting shells that are being shipped to Ukraine. They're diverting some into that reserve. And so those are two ways that I've heard. And I don't know if it's true, but I've heard that they are building this reserve of shells. So, and Russia building a reserve of shells kind of tells you some things. First, it tells you that they worry about their ammo supply. Second, it tells you that they are worried about a Ukrainian breakthrough somewhere. So they would need to move those reserves to stop a breakthrough, right? Isn't that what the reserves are for? And also it tells you that they don't have infinite ammo.
Yes, no one has infinite ammo, and answering the question, does Ukraine have enough time to wait? I would say yes. Of course, this waiting is painful. This waiting is hard on everyone. But that's where Ukraine, I do think that's where Ukraine actually has an advantage, because like Andrew is saying, it all started, at the peak points. They Russians were shooting missiles, like 100 missiles a day. They were shooting then 60,000 shells a day at Ukraine. Right now, it all scaled down, and everything has scaled down basically to Bakhmut, which and this all and Ukraine liberated its so many territories right now, and a lot more to go, of course. But this just indicates that the further it goes, the it's better going to be in Ukraine. And even if Ukraine loses, I don't know, a couple of smaller towns, it's not at the end of the world, because the war is never a one-way street. Even if if you look at boxing, you see people, even if it's a good boxer, he still gets a couple of hits in his head before winning. So it's the reality of war. It's never going to be just one way, unless it's absolutely superior force fighting some really inferior forces. So let's keep this in mind, and as things progress, we see the huge package that was given to Ukraine recently, promised to Ukraine recently, of $3.8 billion that has a new equipment that Ukraine did not have, and this new equipment gives capabilities, like for example Bradley itself. Even though it's not a tank, it has, it can be used as a tank. It has absolutely superb capabilities. If I would ask if I would have one Bradley or three BMP2s, I would choose the Bradley, because it's more, first of all, it has much better armor, much better much better armor and capabilities, but it's also much more reliable. And there are thousands and thousands of Bradleys that were not not in the combat right now. And for us, I would ask this, Andrew, how many BMP3s, for example, have you seen lately?
Not too many.
Yeah, they are there. They do exist, and but there aren't many of them left, and not yet a single Bradley was lost in this war, and they're only entering the battlefield, and Ukraine will get its. It's just matter of time. I think that the strategy here is slowly bleed out, and then push out little by little Russians out of it. Because when you do this slowly, you actually, people get tired of the war on the Russian side, and they do. They are strangled economically. And even Putin at some point may just say, okay, I'm tired of this, let's just pretend this never happened, and find a couple of people to blame out, and slowly pull out his forces out of there. And no one knows exactly what's going to happen, but I think the time in general on the Ukrainian side, even though we're losing people, and obviously the longer this war goes, the more losses we will have.
Yeah, and we have to keep in mind that the Kharkiv offensive came after months of attrition. It didn't come out of nowhere, because the forces that Russia was keeping, they had to divert out of they had to divert them out of Kharkiv all the way around to Crimea and then up to Kherson. So they were diverting these forces all the way around, and the reason that Kharkiv became the area to attack is because there was so much attrition in Kherson. So, and similarly, you could imagine that as Russia is pulling their forces from Zaporizhia to put them in Bakhmut, because they're taking so much attrition in Bakhmut, eventually it might get to the point where Ukraine can attack south.
Yeah, and of course you must also keep in mind the fact that Ukraine has been much more, better planning than Russians do, considering the resources that we have, and we don't have that much stupid offensive that would fail like Russians do. Even though we had failed offensives, but proper strategic push would require a lot of resources, a lot of planning, and a lot of exercise. You must understand that having a brigade and telling it, okay, attack here right now, is the wrong strategy. You have to put this brigade through the exercise that would simulate that before sending them into the battle, into the planned offensive. The commanders have to know each other. They have to cooperate with each other, and this has to happen while all the fighting is happening along all the front lines, and those who are going to be engaged in that offensive